What if I told you that two powerlifters from Minneapolis became the most feared tag team in wrestling history, only to have their legacy destroyed by backstage politics and personal demons? The Road Warriors dominated every major promotion for over a decade, but behind their intimidating face paint and spiked shoulder pads was a tragic story of creative interference, substance abuse, and corporate mismanagement. This is the rise and fall of Animal and Hawk, wrestling's most unstoppable force. A Minneapolis gym became the unlikely launching pad for wrestling history. Joe Laurinaitis and Mike Hegstrand never planned to become wrestling legends. They were powerlifters in Minneapolis, spending their days in local gyms, pushing massive weights and living ordinary lives. Laurinaitis worked construction jobs between training sessions. Hegstrand bounced around different occupations, but always returned to the weight room. Both men stood over 6 feet tall and were billed as massive heavyweights, larger than most opponents of the era. Their physiques were intimidating even by powerlifting standards. The Minneapolis powerlifting scene in the early 1980s was small but competitive. Laurinaitis and Hegstrand trained at the same gym and became lifting partners. They pushed each other to lift heavier weights and build more impressive physiques. They were not traditional, well-schooled wrestlers with years of formal training behind them. They watched wrestling on television like most people, but never considered it as a career path. Their focus remained on powerlifting competitions and building their strength. Most professional wrestlers spend years learning their craft in wrestling schools or amateur programs. They study the fundamentals of grappling, learn how to fall safely, and practice basic holds and maneuvers. The traditional path to wrestling success required dedication to technical skills and ring psychology. Wrestlers typically started young and worked their way up through smaller promotions. The idea that two powerlifters could skip this process seemed impossible. Ole Anderson changed everything. The veteran wrestler and booker for Georgia Championship Wrestling had an eye for talent that went beyond traditional wrestling backgrounds. Anderson was known for discovering unconventional wrestlers who possessed natural charisma or physical gifts. He understood that wrestling fans responded to authentic toughness and intimidating presence more than technical perfection. Anderson believed the right look and attitude could overcome a lack of formal training. Anderson discovered Laurinaitis and Hegstrand during a talent search in Minneapolis. He was immediately struck by their massive size and natural aggression. These weren't typical wrestling school graduates with polished movesets. They were raw, powerful athletes who looked like they could genuinely hurt people in a fight. Anderson saw something special in their combination of size, strength, and natural intensity. He believed their powerlifting backgrounds gave them advantages that traditional wrestlers lacked. Anderson arranged basic wrestling training to teach them fundamental safety techniques and simple maneuvers while preserving their raw power. The focus wasn't on creating technical masters, but on harnessing their natural physical gifts. Their years of heavy lifting had built functional strength, body awareness, and intimidating presence that translated immediately to the wrestling ring. They could physically overpower opponents without relying on complex technical maneuvers. Their intimidating presence was obvious from the first training sessions. Other wrestlers in the gym took notice of these two massive newcomers who moved with surprising agility for their size. Laurinaitis and Hegstrand didn't need to learn how to look tough or project intensity. Their years of competitive powerlifting had already developed those qualities naturally. They carried themselves like legitimate tough guys because they were legitimate tough guys. In 1983, Anderson made the decision that would change wrestling history. He paired Joe Laurinaitis, who had briefly wrestled as the Road Warrior, with Mike Hegstrand in Georgia Championship Wrestling. While many wrestlers paid their dues for years in small territories, Anderson fast-tracked these powerlifters based on their natural gifts. The rapid adaptation surprised even Anderson. Laurinaitis and Hegstrand seemed to understand wrestling psychology instinctively. They grasped that wrestling was about projecting power and dominance rather than demonstrating athletic ability. Anderson knew he had discovered something special, but recognized that raw talent alone wouldn't be enough. Wrestling required characters and storylines that connected with audiences. Laurinaitis and Hegstrand needed the right presentation and management to reach their full potential. Their physical tools were perfect for professional wrestling, but they needed creative guidance to become complete performers. The powerlifting foundation gave them credibility that manufactured wrestling characters often lacked. Fans could sense their legitimate toughness and athletic ability. They didn't need to fake being strong or dangerous because they genuinely possessed those qualities. Their years of pushing their bodies to physical limits had prepared them mentally for the demands of professional wrestling. This combination of natural physical gifts and authentic toughness would soon attract the attention of someone who understood exactly how to transform raw materials into unforgettable wrestling characters. Paul Ellering possessed something rare in professional wrestling. He understood the psychology behind creating characters that fans would never forget. Most managers in the early 1980s focused on getting heat through cheap tactics or loud talking. Ellering was different. He recognized that the most effective wrestling characters emerged from authentic traits rather than manufactured personas. His background wasn't in traditional wrestling management, but in understanding how to amplify natural intensity through visual presentation. Ellering had worked with various wrestlers before meeting Laurinaitis and Hegstrand, but recognized their potential immediately. These weren't ordinary big men who relied solely on size. They possessed genuine menace that couldn't be taught or faked. Most wrestlers tried to look scary through exaggerated facial expressions or over-the-top behavior. Laurinaitis and Hegstrand didn't need to try. They naturally projected an aura of danger that made people uncomfortable. Creating memorable wrestling characters was incredibly difficult in an industry filled with failed gimmicks. Wrestling history was littered with promising concepts that died within months because they lacked authenticity or staying power. Fans could usually spot manufactured characters from miles away. The key was finding something genuine in a performer's personality and amplifying those natural traits rather than forcing artificial personas onto unwilling wrestlers. Ellering drew inspiration from the post-apocalyptic themes that dominated popular culture in the early 1980s. The Road Warrior's look was heavily inspired by the Mad Max film The Road Warrior, which had captured audiences with its vision of a world where only the strongest survived. These films presented characters who had adapted to a harsh reality by becoming harder and more ruthless than their environment. Ellering saw parallels between this fictional world and the brutal nature of professional wrestling. The creative process began with understanding what made Laurinaitis and Hegstrand unique as individuals. Both men possessed an intensity that went beyond their physical size. They approached training and competition with a seriousness that bordered on obsession. Ellering recognized that this natural intensity could be transformed into something theatrical without losing its authenticity. The goal was enhancement rather than complete reinvention of their personalities. Ellering provided the visual and entrance structure that turned two powerlifters into an instantly recognizable act. The face paint became their most distinctive visual element. Each paint scheme was designed for maximum psychological impact on opponents and audiences. The patterns incorporated elements that suggested both war paint and death imagery. The designs were asymmetrical and chaotic, creating an unsettling effect that made them appear unpredictable and dangerous. The spiked shoulder pads transformed them from big wrestlers into something resembling medieval warriors. These weren't costume pieces, but functional armor that added to their intimidating presence. The spikes were positioned strategically to make them appear even larger and more dangerous. The metallic finish caught arena lights and created dramatic shadows that enhanced their entrance presentations. Ellering understood that wrestling gear needed to serve multiple purposes beyond just looking impressive. The leather and metal components of their outfits created distinctive sounds when they moved. The clanking and creaking added an audio element to their presence that fans associated with their characters. These subtle details separated them from wrestlers who relied solely on visual impact. Their entrance style became a masterclass in building anticipation and dread. Ellering choreographed every element from their walk to the ring positioning. They moved with purpose rather than showboating for crowd reactions like most wrestlers. The entrance wasn't entertainment, but a psychological assault designed to intimidate opponents before physical contact began. As their long-term manager and the third member of the original Legion of Doom stable, and coached them on maintaining their intimidating personas throughout matches. They never dropped the intensity that defined their characters, even during routine wrestling maneuvers. Other wrestlers broke character between moves or showed exhaustion during long matches. Laurinaitis and Hegstrand maintained their menacing presence regardless of the situation. The name Legion of Doom itself, which later came to refer primarily to Hawk, Animal and Ellering, was taken from the Super Friends cartoon, according to Animal. This name change further cemented their image as a formidable and almost mythical tag team. Ellering's genius lay in creating characters that felt completely authentic, despite their theatrical nature. Wrestling fans could sense when performers were genuinely tough versus those who were simply playing roles. The Road Warriors never felt like actors playing parts because their characters emerged from genuine aspects of their personalities. Ellering had simply provided the creative framework for expressing their natural intensity. The transformation from powerlifters to wrestling icons happened through careful attention to visual details that other managers overlooked. Every element reinforced the central concept of unstoppable warriors who had emerged from a harsh world where weakness meant death. Now it was time to see if wrestling audiences would accept something this different. Georgia Championship Wrestling became the testing ground for wrestling's most radical experiment. Fans had seen plenty of new tag teams make their debuts over the years. Most promising acts lasted a few months before disappearing into wrestling obscurity. The territory was competitive and unforgiving to wrestlers who couldn't connect with audiences immediately. Fans were naturally skeptical when promoters introduced new talent with grand promises about their potential. Too many hyped debuts had resulted in disappointment and wasted television time. The Road Warriors made their Georgia Championship Wrestling debut in 1983 with zero fanfare or elaborate introduction packages. They simply appeared on wrestling shows and started destroying opponents. Their first match lasted less than 5 minutes. The crowd sat in stunned silence as these two painted warriors demolished a veteran tag team that had been working the territory for months. There were no extended wrestling sequences or back-and-forth action. The Road Warriors simply overpowered their opponents and ended the match with devastating efficiency. Wrestling fans had never seen anything like their presentation or in-ring style. Most tag teams followed established patterns of technical wrestling, extended selling sequences, and dramatic comeback attempts. The Road Warriors ignored these traditional formulas completely. They entered matches with the intention of winning quickly and decisively. Their opponents barely got any offensive moves before being overwhelmed by superior size and aggression. The crowd reaction was immediate and intense. Some fans cheered because they appreciated seeing something genuinely different and exciting. Others booed because the Road Warriors were destroying popular local wrestlers with apparent ease. The split reaction was exactly what wrestling promoters wanted from new acts. Fans were talking about these mysterious warriors who had appeared from nowhere and dominated established competition. Their refusal to sell for opponents broke every rule that wrestling had established over decades. The Road Warriors rarely showed pain or exhaustion during matches. They absorbed punishment without visible effect and continued their assault on opponents. Their reputation became so intimidating that some wrestlers would grab their bags and leave the arena when they were scheduled to face the Road Warriors. This approach made them appear genuinely invincible rather than just storyline dominant. Their rapid rise to championship status shocked wrestling insiders who expected new teams to pay their dues through months of preliminary matches. The Road Warriors won the NWA National Tag Team Championship upon their debut in 1983, a title they would capture multiple times during their Georgia run. This immediate push demonstrated management's confidence in their drawing power and ability to generate fan interest. The development of their catchphrases happened organically during television interviews and live appearances. "What a rush" became their signature expression because it perfectly captured their apparent enjoyment of physical violence and competition. The phrase wasn't scripted by writers, but emerged naturally from their personalities. Fans began chanting the catchphrase during their matches, creating an interactive element that enhanced their popularity. Initially, the Legion of Doom stable included other wrestlers like Jake the Snake Roberts, King Kong Bundy, and The Spoiler, but the name eventually came to refer mainly to Hawk, Animal, and their manager Paul Ellering. This evolution reflected how the Road Warriors had become the dominant force within their own group. Their squash match style created a new template for presenting monster wrestlers in professional wrestling. Previous dominant teams still followed traditional match structures with extended back-and-forth action. The Road Warriors compressed entire storylines into brief, violent encounters that left no doubt about the outcome. This approach influenced how promoters presented other powerful wrestlers for years afterward. The Georgia wrestling scene transformed around their presence. Other tag teams were forced to adapt their presentations to compete for fan attention with these newcomers who had redefined what dominance looked like. Established teams that had relied on technical wrestling skills suddenly seemed less impressive compared to the raw power that the Road Warriors displayed nightly. Backstage reactions from other wrestlers were mixed, but generally respectful. Veterans recognized that the Road Warriors possessed legitimate toughness that couldn't be faked or taught. Their powerlifting backgrounds gave them credibility that most manufactured wrestling characters lacked. Even wrestlers who disagreed with their in-ring style acknowledged that they were drawing money and creating genuine excitement among fans. The impact on Georgia Championship Wrestling extended beyond their individual matches. Television ratings increased when the Road Warriors appeared on shows. Attendance at live events grew because fans wanted to see these destroyers in person. Their success proved that wrestling audiences were hungry for something different from the established formulas that had dominated the industry. Within months of their debut, the Road Warriors had completely redefined expectations for tag team wrestling dominance. They proved that pure physical superiority could be more compelling than technical wrestling ability or traditional storytelling methods. Their Georgia success established the foundation for what would become one of wrestling's most influential careers. But their revolutionary approach was about to challenge everything the wrestling industry thought it knew about how tag teams should operate. Traditional tag team wrestling had followed established formulas for decades, built around technical exchanges and extended storytelling sequences. Teams created drama through complex grappling displays where wrestlers demonstrated years of training. The hot tag remained wrestling's most sacred tradition, with one partner absorbing punishment while fans waited for the dramatic moment when he tagged his fresh teammate. Extended selling sequences allowed wrestlers to show vulnerability and build sympathy from audiences who wanted to see favorites overcome adversity through determination. The Road Warriors chose to completely disregard everything that traditional tag team wrestling represented. Breaking from wrestling tradition was dangerous territory that had destroyed countless careers. Promoters and fans expected certain elements from tag team matches because these formulas had worked for generations. Wrestlers who ignored established psychology often found themselves unemployed within months. The Road Warriors faced enormous pressure to conform, but decided their approach would be different. Raw power became their primary weapon instead of technical wrestling fundamentals that other teams spent years perfecting. While opponents focused on complex submission holds and intricate chain wrestling sequences, the Road Warriors simplified their approach to devastating effect. They used basic power moves like gorilla press slams, power slams, and clotheslines to overwhelm opponents who expected more traditional wrestling exchanges. Their matches became displays of pure physical dominance rather than technical competitions. The Doomsday Device represented their philosophy in one devastating finishing maneuver. Animal would hoist opponents onto his shoulders in a power slam position, while Hawk climbed to the top rope. Hawk would then deliver a brutal clothesline to the elevated opponent, creating a spectacular finishing move that combined both wrestlers' strengths. The move required perfect timing and coordination, but appeared effortless when executed properly. Opponents had no defense against this combination of power and precision. Perfecting the Doomsday Device took months of practice to ensure both safety and maximum visual impact. The positioning had to be exact, or the move could seriously injure opponents who couldn't protect themselves while elevated on Animal's shoulders. Hawk needed to time his leap perfectly to connect with the clothesline at the precise moment for maximum effect. When performed correctly, the Doomsday Device looked like it could legitimately end careers. The Road Warriors rebalanced tag team presentation by proving power-based, short destruction matches could be as compelling as traditional long-form tag psychology. Their refusal to follow established patterns initially confused audiences who expected familiar wrestling structures. Fans were accustomed to seeing teams trade momentum throughout matches with both sides getting offensive opportunities. The Road Warriors rarely allowed opponents sustained offense, maintaining control from opening bell to final pinfall. Audiences ultimately embraced this radical departure from wrestling convention because it felt more authentic than manufactured drama. Wrestling fans could sense genuine toughness and athletic superiority. The Road Warriors didn't need to pretend they were in danger from opponents who were obviously outmatched physically. Their dominance felt real because it was based on legitimate physical advantages rather than scripted storylines. Match pacing became their most revolutionary contribution to wrestling presentation. Their matches often finished quickly, creating a sense of unpredictability that kept fans talking. They compressed entire storylines into 5-minute destructions that left no doubt about the outcome, treating opponents like obstacles to be removed rather than equals to be respected. This compressed approach to match structure influenced how promoters presented other dominant wrestlers for years afterward. Wrestling companies realized that audiences responded positively to overwhelming displays of power that didn't follow traditional pacing formulas. Squash matches became legitimate drawing cards instead of just preliminary entertainment before main events. Other teams began adopting more power-based approaches after witnessing the Road Warriors' success. The technical wrestling style that had dominated the division for decades suddenly seemed less impressive compared to raw displays of strength and aggression. Teams started incorporating more power moves into their arsenals and adopting more aggressive presentation styles to compete for fan attention. The business impact extended beyond just wrestling style changes. Their emphasis on power and dominance attracted different types of fans to wrestling shows who might not have been interested in technical wrestling aspects. Casual sports fans could appreciate overwhelming physical superiority even without understanding wrestling's intricate storytelling methods. This broader appeal helped expand wrestling's audience during the 1980s boom period. Wrestling promoters discovered that pure dominance could be more compelling than traditional storytelling methods when executed by performers with legitimate physical credentials. The Road Warriors proved that audiences would accept radical departures from established formulas if the wrestlers possessed authentic qualities that couldn't be manufactured. Their success opened doors that most wrestlers could never access. Wrestling's territorial system in the 1980s trapped most performers within exclusive contracts that kept them working for single promotions. The AWA couldn't share wrestlers with NWA territories, and working shows in Japan meant abandoning American commitments entirely. These restrictions limited earning potential and prevented wrestlers from building national recognition. Breaking these rules meant burning bridges with promoters who controlled wrestlers' careers. The Road Warriors operated by completely different rules that nobody else seemed able to follow. Wrestling promoters typically demanded exclusivity from their top performers to protect their investments and maintain control over storylines. Wrestlers who tried to work multiple territories faced blacklisting from promoters who felt betrayed by shared loyalties. Most performers accepted these limitations because they needed steady income and couldn't risk losing their primary source of work. The Road Warriors somehow split their time between the AWA, Jim Crockett Promotions, and other NWA territories, plus tours in Japan, while maintaining positive relationships with different promoters. The American Wrestling Association became their primary base, where they established their reputation as the promotion's biggest drawing card. Werner Gang brought them in initially as heel wrestlers, but their overwhelming power and unique presentation quickly won over audiences. They captured the AWA World Tag Team Championship on August 25, 1984, defeating the Crusher and Baron von Raschke in a match that demonstrated their superiority over established AWA veterans. Their title reign transformed them from regional attractions into national stars who could sell out arenas across the Midwest. Their matches became the centerpiece of AWA programming throughout 1984 and 1985. Television ratings increased whenever the Road Warriors appeared on shows because fans wanted to see these destroyers in action. Live attendance grew at AWA events, where they were advertised because their reputation for devastating squash matches preceded them. The promotion built entire shows around their appearances and marketed them as special attractions, rather than regular roster members. The legendary feuds with the fabulous Freebirds elevated both teams to new levels of popularity and profitability. The Freebirds represented everything the Road Warriors opposed, with their rebellious attitude and charismatic personalities, contrasting sharply with the Warriors' silent brutality. These matches drew massive crowds who came to see two completely different wrestling philosophies collide in violent confrontations. The rivalry generated significant revenue for the AWA and helped establish both teams as premier attractions in professional wrestling. The Freebirds' interference cost the Road Warriors their AWA World Tag Team Championship when they lost the titles to Jimmy Garvin and Steve Regal on September 29, 1985. This interference created ongoing storylines that kept fans invested in their battles and proved that the Road Warriors could work with different types of opponents. The matches demonstrated their ability to generate heat and maintain audience interest beyond simple squash victories over inferior competition. NWA territories provided another stage for their dominance, where they captured the NWA National Tag Team Championship multiple times in Georgia Championship Wrestling. Their success in NWA promotions alongside their AWA achievements proved they could thrive in different wrestling environments against varied competition styles. Each territory presented unique challenges with different wrestling traditions and fan expectations that they overcame through sheer physical superiority. Co-promoted cards allowed them to appear in different territories while holding championships elsewhere, creating unprecedented flexibility in their bookings. Their drawing power was so significant that promoters were willing to share their services rather than risk losing them completely to rival companies. This arrangement demonstrated their value as special attractions who transcended normal business practices and territorial boundaries. Working across territorial boundaries created a larger-than-life reputation that single-territory wrestlers couldn't match. Fans in different regions heard stories about their dominance in other promotions, which enhanced their mystique when they finally appeared locally. Their multi-promotional presence made them seem invincible and increased their marketability beyond what any territory-exclusive wrestler could achieve during this era. Their ability to maintain positive relationships with promoters across different territories required careful management of schedules and storylines. Missing commitments or creating conflicts between promotions could have destroyed their unique position in the wrestling business. They successfully balanced competing demands while building their reputation as reliable performers who drew money wherever they appeared. This multi-promotional dominance established them as truly special attractions who operated above normal wrestling business restrictions. Their success across different companies simultaneously created a precedent that few wrestlers have matched. But their greatest achievements still lay ahead in wrestling's most prestigious organization. The National Wrestling Alliance represented the pinnacle of professional wrestling in the 1980s. Holding an NWA championship meant more than just regional success. It established wrestlers as legitimate stars who could draw money in the most competitive wrestling environment. The NWA World Tag Team Championship was wrestling's most prestigious tag team title. Champions were expected to defend against the toughest competition from multiple territories. The Road Warriors knew that conquering the NWA would cement their legacy as wrestling's greatest tag team. The NWA featured established teams that had built reputations through years of hard-fought victories. These weren't newcomers who could be intimidated by reputation alone. Teams like the Four Horsemen, the Midnight Express, and the Russians had proven themselves against elite competition. They possessed technical skills, ring psychology, and championship experience that couldn't be overlooked. The Road Warriors faced their greatest challenge yet against opponents who wouldn't be easily overwhelmed by pure power and intimidation. Their first major NWA breakthrough came with victory in the inaugural Jim Crockett Sr. Memorial Cup on April 19, 1986. The tournament victory validated everything they had accomplished in smaller territories and proved they belonged among wrestling's top performers. The feuds with the Four Horsemen created some of wrestling's most memorable moments and elevated both groups to legendary status. Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, and their associates represented everything the Road Warriors opposed. The Horsemen relied on cunning, wealth, and underhanded tactics, while the Warriors succeeded through pure strength and intimidation. These contrasting philosophies created natural drama that wrestling fans embraced enthusiastically. Their alliance with Dusty Rhodes and Nikita Koloff against the Four Horsemen produced the most significant matches of their NWA careers. The 1987 Great American Bash featured the first ever War Games match, where these rival factions settled their differences inside a double-cage structure. The Road Warriors also captured the NWA World Six-Man Tag Team Championship twice alongside Dusty Rhodes, showcasing their versatility and ability to work with other top stars. These championship reigns demonstrated their value beyond traditional tag team wrestling and proved they could adapt to different match formats While maintaining their destructive effectiveness, the classic encounters with the Midnight Express showcased their versatility against technical wrestling specialists. Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane were masters of traditional tag team wrestling who relied on speed, precision, and perfect timing. Their manager, Jim Cornette, provided strategic advantages that had helped them defeat numerous power-based teams. The Road Warriors proved that raw strength could overcome technical superiority when properly applied against skilled opponents. The scaffold match victory over the Midnight Express at Starrcade 1986 became wrestling legend for its innovation and brutality. The match took place 20 feet above the ring on a narrow platform where wrestlers fought to throw opponents to the canvas below. The Road Warriors defeated the Midnight Express in this dangerous environment, demonstrating their fearlessness and adaptability. Jim Cornette's infamous fall from the scaffold resulted in serious injuries that added real drama to an already spectacular contest. Their conflicts with the Russians added patriotic elements that resonated with American audiences during Cold War tensions. Ivan Koloff and Nikita Koloff represented Soviet power and communist ideology in storylines that reflected real-world political conflicts. The Road Warriors became symbols of American strength, defeating foreign threats through superior power and determination. These matches drew passionate crowd reactions that enhanced the emotional impact of their victories. The Road Warriors captured the NWA World Tag Team Championship on October 29, 1988, reaching the pinnacle of tag team wrestling success. However, their reign ended controversially on April 2, 1989, when they faced the Varsity Club. Referee Teddy Long performed an excessively fast count that cost them the titles. Long was fired for his actions, but the titles were not returned to the Road Warriors, creating backstage tensions that would follow them throughout their careers. Major NWA events like Starrcade became bigger attractions because of their participation. Wrestling fans purchased tickets specifically to see the Road Warriors compete against elite competition. Their presence on these cards guaranteed dramatic moments and spectacular action that justified premium ticket prices. The NWA built entire shows around their appearances because they understood the drawing power these painted warriors possessed. Wrestling fans recognized them as the standard for tag team excellence that other teams aspired to reach. Their American dominance was complete, but international wrestling markets offered even greater opportunities to prove their universal appeal. New Japan Pro Wrestling represented the ultimate challenge for American wrestlers who wanted to prove themselves on a global stage. Japanese wrestling audiences were notoriously demanding and skeptical of foreign performers who couldn't adapt to their wrestling culture. The fans expected technical excellence, physical toughness, and respect for traditional wrestling values. Many American wrestlers had failed miserably in Japan because they couldn't connect with audiences who valued substance over flashy presentations. American wrestlers who toured Japan often struggled with the different expectations and wrestling styles that dominated the country's promotions. Japanese strong style emphasized legitimate toughness and realistic combat techniques that exposed wrestlers who relied solely on entertainment value. The Road Warriors faced this challenge with their typical confidence, but understood they needed to prove themselves against Japan's elite competition to gain credibility with these demanding fans. The Road Warriors began touring Japan in March 1985 with All Japan Pro Wrestling, where they made an immediate impact on audiences and wrestling media. Their dominant performances against some of Japan's biggest teams quickly gained headlines in Japanese wrestling publications, including a sub-4-minute squash victory over the legendary team of Killer Khan and Animal Hamaguchi. These weren't typical American wrestlers who needed months to adjust to Japanese wrestling culture. They adapted immediately and began delivering the kind of powerful performances that Japanese fans respected and appreciated. Their tours with All Japan Pro Wrestling in 1985 and 1986 transformed them into genuine legends within Japanese wrestling culture. The Road Warriors became such significant attractions that they toured Japan whenever they were between major American contracts. This arrangement proved mutually beneficial because Japanese promotions gained access to internationally recognized stars, while the Road Warriors expanded their global reputation and earning potential beyond American territories. On March 12, 1987, they captured the NWA International Tag Team Championship from Jumbo Tsuruta and Genichiro Tenryu, holding the prestigious title for 15 months. This championship victory demonstrated their ability to defeat Japan's most respected wrestlers and established their credentials as legitimate international champions, rather than just American curiosities. Multiple IWGP Tag Team Championship reigns in New Japan. Pro wrestling further solidified their status as elite competitors who could win championships that carried significant prestige within the wrestling industry. Their matches in Japan elevated their global status and created international wrestling buzz that extended far beyond traditional wrestling audiences. Wrestling publications worldwide covered their Japanese success and reported on their ability to adapt their power-based style to Japanese wrestling traditions. This international media coverage enhanced their reputation in American promotions, where promoters recognized their value as truly global attractions. The Road Warriors became one of the first truly international wrestling attractions to transcend cultural and language boundaries that typically limited American wrestlers' international success. Their intimidating appearance and devastating wrestling style communicated effectively regardless of language barriers. Japanese fans could appreciate their legitimate toughness and athletic ability without needing to understand their personalities or speaking abilities. Media attention in Japan treated them as major celebrities who were recognized outside wrestling circles. Japanese television programs featured them as special guests and celebrities, rather than just visiting wrestlers. This mainstream recognition demonstrated their crossover appeal and proved that wrestling could create genuine international stars who attracted attention from general entertainment media. Their Japanese success significantly influenced their booking and perception in American promotions, where managers recognized their enhanced value as international stars. American wrestling companies could market them as globally recognized attractions who had conquered Japan's demanding wrestling scene. This international credibility justified higher payouts and more prominent positions on major wrestling cards throughout the United States. Legendary matches in New Japan showcased their ability to work effectively with different wrestling styles and opponents. They adapted their power-based approach to complement Japanese strong-style wrestling without losing the intensity that made them unique. These performances proved their versatility and demonstrated that they weren't limited to the squash match style that had initially made them famous in American territories. In December 1992, Hawk formed a partnership with Kensuke Sasaki, who became known as Power Warrior, to create the Hellraisers. This team won the IWGP Tag Team Championship from Tony Harm and Scott Norton, proving that the Road Warriors' Japanese success extended beyond their original partnership. They captured the title again from Scott Norton and Hercules in January 1994, demonstrating how their influence elevated local talent and created new opportunities for Japanese wrestlers. Their international success proved that professional wrestling could create global superstars who transcended regional boundaries and cultural differences. The Road Warriors demonstrated that authentic toughness and compelling characters could connect with audiences regardless of nationality or language. This global reputation made them valuable acquisitions for any promotion seeking to establish credibility as a truly international wrestling company. Wrestling's biggest stage was watching, and their worldwide credentials would soon attract the attention of the company that promised to make them the most famous wrestlers on Earth. The World Wrestling Federation represented the ultimate prize that had eluded them throughout their legendary career. Wrestling fans had waited years to see the Road Warriors conquer Vince McMahon's empire. Their arrival in June 1990 created massive excitement throughout the wrestling community. McMahon rebranded them as the Legion of Doom because other wrestlers already used Warrior in their names. The Ultimate Warrior and Kerry Von Erich had established those identities first. McMahon wanted to avoid confusion, but preserved their legendary personas by introducing them as Road Warrior Hawk and Road Warrior Animal. WWE management believed they knew better than the wrestlers themselves about what made characters successful. This attitude created immediate tension with performers who had built their reputations elsewhere using different methods. The Legion of Doom debuted on WWE television July 15, 1990, during Wrestling Challenge. They immediately entered a feud with Demolition that many fans had anticipated for years. This rivalry represented the culmination of tag team wrestling, because Demolition was perceived as a team created in the Road Warriors' image. Wrestling fans finally got to see which version was superior in head-to-head competition. Their immediate popularity, despite limited microphone time, proved that their characters transcended verbal communication. Fans embraced their rebranded Legion of Doom persona because the essential elements remained intact. The face paint, spiked shoulder pads, and devastating wrestling style were unchanged. WWE audiences responded positively to these established stars who brought credibility and excitement to the tag team division. The feud with Demolition never reached its full potential due to changes in that team's lineup. Axe's health issues led to Crush's gradual integration into the group. This roster shift prevented the rivalry from reaching the heights many fans had anticipated. The Legion of Doom shifted their focus toward the tag team titles after this disappointing creative development. Their victory over the Nasty Boys at SummerSlam 1991 represented the highlight of their initial WWE run. They defeated their opponents in a no disqualification street fight at Madison Square Garden to win the WWE World Tag Team Championship. The moment felt like destiny fulfilled after years of dominance in other companies. Backstage politics and creative disagreements began undermining their push almost immediately after winning the titles. The company wanted more control over their characters and storylines than they had experienced in previous promotions. These creative conflicts created ongoing tension between the performers and management. Their WWE Tag Team Championship reign lasted only a few months. They lost the titles to Money Inc. on February 7, 1992, and subsequently left the promotion. The controversial decision to have them lose the titles before their planned major defense shocked wrestling fans who expected longer championship reigns from such dominant performers. This booking decision demonstrated management's lack of understanding about what made them special attractions. WWE management's handling of their characters differed significantly from what had made them successful elsewhere. The company introduced the controversial Rocco storyline, where they were given a ventriloquist dummy as their inspiration. This gimmick was originally called Freckles, but was poorly received and never aired properly. Hawk expressed his dissatisfaction with the direction the team was heading under WWE creative control. Following SummerSlam 1992, where the team made a memorable entrance, riding motorcycles in front of over 78,000 fans at Wembley Stadium, Hawk left the WWE in disgust. This departure led to a temporary change in the Legion of Doom's composition, with Crush replacing Hawk for several house shows in Europe. By the time the team returned to North America, Hawk was on hiatus and the Legion of Doom was essentially finished as a unit. Their later return to WWE in 1997 brought even more controversial creative decisions. The company exploited Hawk's real substance abuse struggles through storylines that both wrestlers objected to. The infamous drinking angle and Titantron incident in 1998 crossed ethical lines that damaged their credibility and personal dignity. These storylines were eventually dropped after widespread criticism, but the damage was already done. Their WWE experiences proved that even the most successful wrestlers could be derailed by corporate politics and creative interference. The Legion of Doom had dominated every other major promotion, but struggled to overcome the WWE's rigid approach to character development. Wrestling's other major company was watching these failures and preparing to make their own bid for the legendary team's services. World Championship Wrestling represented another chance for redemption, but their relationship with the company became complicated by management disputes and creative disagreements. The Road Warriors re-signed with WCW in late 1995 and returned to television in 1996 with expectations of recapturing their former dominance. Wrestling fans hoped this homecoming would restore the mystique that had been damaged during their previous wrestling experiences. Their 1996 WCW run featured matches against established teams like the Steiner Brothers and Harlem Heat, opponents who could theoretically provide the kind of competition that showcased their abilities. These feuds had potential to remind audiences why the Road Warriors had dominated wrestling for over a decade. The matches demonstrated they still possessed the physical tools and intimidating presence that had made them legendary attractions throughout the 1980s. However, creative disagreements and contract disputes with WCW management quickly diminished their momentum and prevented them from achieving the success many had anticipated. The promotion failed to capitalize on their legendary status in ways that satisfied either the wrestlers or the audience expectations. Booking decisions didn't reflect the dominant presentation that had made them special attractions in previous companies. Their failure to capture new tag team championships during this run highlighted the disconnect between their reputation and their actual treatment by the promotion. Wrestling fans expected the Road Warriors to win titles and dominate competition like they had done throughout their careers. Instead, they found themselves in a company that seemed uncertain about how to utilize their unique appeal and drawing power. The contract dispute with Bischoff became a significant factor in their departure from WCW. Bischoff had allegedly promised them a higher-paid contract and separate arrangements for their Japan tours, commitments he later denied making. This disagreement created tension that made their working relationship untenable and contributed to their decision to leave the company after only 6 months. The financial and creative disagreements highlighted deeper problems with how WCW management valued established wrestling legends who had built their reputations elsewhere. The company seemed more interested in creating new stars than properly utilizing proven attractions who could draw money immediately. This approach wasted opportunities to capitalize on the Road Warriors' established fan base and international recognition. Their departure from WCW marked another disappointing chapter in what should have been a triumphant return to a company where they had previously found success. The brief run demonstrated how quickly wrestling politics and management conflicts could derail even the most established performers. Wrestling fans were left wondering if the Road Warriors would ever find a promotion that understood their value. The pattern of corporate mismanagement and creative conflicts was becoming a recurring theme that followed them from promotion to promotion. Each company seemed to have different ideas about how to present them, despite their proven track record of success using specific approaches. These repeated disappointments began taking a toll on both wrestlers personally and professionally. The systematic erosion of their mystique through poor booking decisions and management conflicts proved how fragile wrestling legacies could be when subjected to corporate interference. Years of careful character development and authentic success were being undermined by months of misguided creative decisions and backstage politics that served nobody's interests. UCW's mishandling proved how quickly bad creative decisions could destroy even the strongest wrestling legacies. The damage done during this period extended beyond just disappointing wrestling storylines. The repeated failures to properly utilize their talents created frustration and disillusionment that would have consequences extending far beyond the wrestling business itself. The Road Warriors had conquered every major wrestling promotion during their peak years, but they were discovering that success in wrestling required more than just talent and charisma. Corporate politics, creative interference, and management conflicts could derail even the most legendary careers when wrestlers lost control over their own presentations and storylines. Their struggles with multiple promotions revealed fundamental problems within the wrestling industry that affected many performers beyond just the Road Warriors. The business had become more corporate and less focused on what actually drew money from wrestling fans. This shift created an environment where even proven attractions could be misused and wasted by management that didn't understand what made them successful. Wrestling history remembers few teams that achieved such complete dominance across multiple decades and promotions. The Road Warriors proved that wrestling could create characters so powerful they transcended the business itself. Their story revealed how corporate mismanagement and personal demons could destroy even the most legendary careers. Hawk died on October 19, 2003, at age 46 from a heart attack, marking a tragic end to wrestling's most dominant partnership. Animal continued their legacy, returning to WWE and winning another tag team championship with Heidenreich in 2005, while publicly honoring his fallen partner. Their WWE Hall of Fame induction on April 2, 2011, alongside Paul Ellering, came nearly a decade after Hawk's death. Many fans and commentators saw the recognition as overdue acknowledgement of how badly the industry had failed its most revolutionary tag team. Animal later died on September 22, 2020, from a heart attack, bringing final closure to their incredible journey. What's your single favorite Road Warriors moment? Share your pick in the comments. Like and subscribe for more deep dive wrestling documentaries.